Hello, thought we'd show you my new 72-inch Berco Snowblower that's on my 5520 CH Branson, whatever they say. And I put most of this together last spring, but I didn't have any snow after I got it. So the frame comes on a pallet. Thought maybe some of you would like to know the problems of getting it and putting it together. But this here frame here, this quick attach frame, is actually bolted underneath and put on the pallet. So you have to take that off and move it back and save the bolts, but they have extra nuts with the plastic friction nut to go on those instead. So you use the same bolts that it came bolted together with, but you remove that back. So then you also have to put this spout on. And this is quite interesting to put this ring in here and get that to work, but they have pretty good instructions. The engine does not come with oil in it, so you have to make sure you put oil in there before you fire it up. I put 1030 in there, figuring I'm always going to use it in the cold weather. I think that's the engine recommendation for 0 degrees or so. We just had some zero degrees. Then this cable here that's going right here, you have to make sure that on a tractor, because you can actually tip this way down, you need plenty of slack. If you want to come a little closer, plenty of slack in the cable here so that you don't rip that apart. And I tied it so that it wouldn't get interfering into these handles. And then that goes up there, and I've tied it to my beam, the loader frame, and so that it stays there and only flexes down there next to the cab down there on the other side. So I've mounted my control box in here on the yonder side of my tractor because I don't go in and out that side. I don't want to get tangled up in the cables, so that's where I've mounted it over there. I've also left my 6-foot rotor tiller on the back because I'm going to need that for counterbalance from the front. Instead of putting anything else on there, I just left that on there. So I'll show you here where I fed the cable through this particular tractor. There isn't very many places to go with it, but I went down underneath this so it wasn't being bent into here. And so there's enough play in the seal here for this not to break this glass door. And I've just laid it up there like that. So, and on this side, it comes with this little battery box, which is more or less a size for a lawnmower battery. And of course, I have so much machinery that I have extra batteries of full size. So this is like a full size 24 or 24F. What I did is I bent these little ears down on this bracket they make and then added some ears so that I could put a full size battery in there. And I don't care if it's covered or not. Water shouldn't go in there too good. It hurt the battery. So that's the things I've done there. They say to oil this track in here so that it doesn't freeze up. That's probably a good idea. That ring in there, I've oiled that and it should get down there, and oiled this gear a little bit on this side. You also have to, I found you have to loosen these up a little bit. The factory tightens those up too much. It makes this hard for the motor to move it. So a little slack there, and they've got the lock nuts on there so they aren't going to come off. I also checked this gearbox before I ever fired it up. And that's a number 6mm Allen wrench. The pictures that I have show it's on this side here, but it's right there to check the fill. When you pulled that out, it ran out, so I know it's full. And then the drain cock is underneath. I think you fill it up here, or you could try to fill it through there. That's a little bleeder there. So then also, the other thing is they send with you about, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these shear pins. They need to be a special one. You can see them in the package that they're built special. There's one on this end, then over here on this end, right there. And then also in here is another, they give you a couple of these too, these little shear bolts here that break off. Much smaller bolt than out here. So I'm sure it'll protect it. The other thing I'm curious about when I'm going to run this thing is the skid shoe is back here on the back corner. Anybody that knows a loader tractor that I have like this will be able to, you'll be able to dig that down into the gravel or the cement, which I have gravel, so I don't really want to pick that up. So I put these all the way down to start with. We'll see how that works and how much snow it leaves behind. But I certainly don't want to get into the gravel and start throwing gravel around. And that means too that I have to make sure I'm always kind of level at the same spot. I can also probably tip it a little bit if I wanted to dig in without even coming up here and adjusting these. But you can sure get out of control. Maybe the greater blade is right here, so I certainly don't want to start digging into the gravel here by tipping it forward too much. So we'll see how that works out. And I think that's about it for the things I wanted to show you. So we'll start blowing snow. I should show you also that there's a kill switch on this control in here, the little red button. If you're getting into trouble and you want to shut it down quickly, you hit that little red button, you twist it and it pops up, and you hit it to shut the thing off. Now you need to make sure though that if you shut it off that way, you turn the key off at the same time, because it'll drain the battery. You just leave this key on. So here's how you start it. Throttle is here. There's no choke. When I first started this up, because it's fuel injected, I thought it would start right up like a car does. But when it's empty of gas, even if I left the fuel pump run a little while, I must have had to crank on it about 10 seconds before it would take off. So I was kind of wondering if I had that switch turned wrong or right or whatever. But it just needs to take a little bit of time, so it doesn't fire up quite as fast as a fuel injected regular car. So we'll start it. And the other thing too is the clutch for the front is engaged in there, on the control box. They tell you to start it up and engage that about 10, off and on about 10 times to burnish the clutch up front here. That's simply to smoke the clutch a little bit or smooth it off, the fibers and everything. They put that in there. It has quite a bit of friction, and you really want it to slip a little bit. So they're trying to make sure it's loose and slips and burns that off. Plus the fact that you need to also do that probably every time you fire it up to make sure it's disengaging, in case you've got snow and ice froze that clutch together, and you need to get enough heat here to melt that out and make sure that that's disengaging before you take off snowblowing and hit something or somebody. So anyways, I've already done that, burnished the clutch, so I know it disengages okay. So we'll start up here. What I don't know is if you're supposed to fire this thing up full speed and then be able to engage the clutch. The instructions kind of are a little bit fishy on that. Sounds like you're supposed to engage it at a slow speed, which I would normally think that that's the right thing to do, because I like to start all my machinery down on the farm slow and then bring it up to speed with the engine. So it's not going to be as fun because I have to climb in there, engage it, and then come back out here and throttle it up. So you'd have the tendency of wanting to throw it in gear when it's running full speed or shutting it off that way. And I'm guessing I'm going to get out and engage it slowly for a while anyways. Shortly after I said this about the engine starting up slowly, I realized that probably it was the oil filter needing to fill up the very first time you fire it up, so that the kill sensor on low oil or low pressure that shuts these engines off had to bring up its pressure enough for it to run. So now that I started up after this, it starts up within one revolution of the engine. Also, this burnishing of the clutch, I said that you're supposed to start it up at an idle speed and then engage it. and then go out and fire it up. Well, in a little while, you'll see that I was having troubles with that engagement switch and was flicking it on and off at full throttle speed. Doesn't seem to hurt it at all. Maybe it even keeps her burnished up a little better, but doesn't seem to jerk the engine or anything any more at full speed than it did idle, which it seemed to do that quite a bit. So I don't think I'd worry about engaging it at full throttle. Show them everything. Show them I plugged it up. So I plugged it up right off the bat. Not sure I like that guard in there. I'm probably going to get rid of that someday. So this snow is kind of packed, soft. It's starting to get close to melting here. So probably a little bit extra problem here. Got the engine off. I'm gonna get rid of that right away. That's the guard for people who stick their hands in there. Running. These finger-like things that I'm having to clean the snow out in between are obviously a guard for your safety in case some person would reach down in there or try to reach down in there while it's still running. As you can see, they're fairly easy to break off, and on the next plug up, that's exactly what I did, was break the up and down fingers off. Left the cross member in there so that it holds the sides of the spout together. Obviously, this is not a safe thing to do, and you need to keep all your equipment completely safe and keep those guards in place.
For your safety, don't do that.
It is at about this point that the wife gets a face full of snow. I was not paying attention to where my spout was pointed. I was too busy trying to figure out how to run this machine. And she says that it is like a snowman's head hitting her in the face. She had to stop and go change her clothes. And then she came out and filmed some more.
Yes, at this point you see that I have accidentally stopped the snowblower by hitting that kill switch on the clutch, and immediately have fired it back up at full throttle. I will state here right now in my owner's manual on page 18 under snow removal. There are A through G things to make sure of, and in this particular spot in section E, before engaging the snowblower, the engine should be running at low speed. So, I suppose if you want to make sure that your snowblower does not have warranty problems and that they won't cover it, you need to engage that clutch at a slow speed and then get back in the tractor. I don't know what to say here. My frustration has made me just go ahead and flick that switch back on when it's actually full of snow. So that's probably not a good thing. Don't do that.
So I've learned a couple of things already. The instructions tell you on these, when you put them on the front tractor like this, front of the tractor, that you can use your float lever. You let it down and you go to float. Well, I'm finding out that's not exactly right. This is frozen ground under here. The gravel was very frozen. I'm still digging these little feet on here, still dig in. So what I'm noticing is once I get a spot cleared out, I always go back to that, set it on that spot, and then just barely touch it and hold the tractor, especially on the level here. It's going to be a little trickier going up and down hills in my driveway, but for this area here, it's best just to kind of set it down a little bit, not go into float, because it goes down pretty hard. This thing's heavy. Even the frame on my tractor adds to it. So that's not the thing to do. The other thing to do, the other thing I've noticed is that triangle notch, the top middle of that triangle is where my normal bucket is starting to be level with the ground when I'm going into a wad of dirt to scoop it. But I'm having to run way up the bucket way on its heel a lot more than you would have the other way, tipped up to keep it from being too close to the dirt. So that's even with these feet here completely down. completely down here. So I'm kind of right on the fact it'd be nice if those shoes were up in here somewhere, but there isn't the structure for it. So I don't know if it's just a good idea to bolt them on there or not. But anyways, that's kind of what I'm finding. So we'll keep blowing some more and see if I learn any more. Okay, so a couple more things. You need a real light touch on that tilt on that bucket and setting it down. Now, granted, this is the first snow blowing that I've done, and you know, it'll finally ice up maybe. But here in our neck of the woods, we'll always melt this off about 3 or 4 times before, you know, during the winter. So I'm always dealing with gravel. But some places it's going to freeze up, and maybe we will too. I get a couple of snow blowings that I can set it down better, but I just barely set it down. And you need to really tilt it. I need to really tilt it back so that it doesn't actually, even at that height on the slides, I'm really need to be tilted back pretty heavy duty, even with the light touch. The other thing is that I really made a mistake in putting this switch on here. No matter what I'm doing on the switch, whether it's rotating the spout or whatever, or even working the loader arm there, I hit that safety off switch for the clutch. And all you got to do is touch that red slider here. I'll show you. You got to flip this up and flip the switch up. And if all you got to do is barely touch that, and I'm constantly shutting that clutch off, this is bad. I'm going to have to maybe rotate this a quarter of a turn so that this red switch is over here, that I can't get to it quite so easy. But I'll still be able to hit it pretty fast to shut it off. So if you ever needed to. So that's what I'm learning. So now I'll go down and snow blow my driveway and see how that works, just kind of on a straightaway. Okay, I started up.